You said yes again. You knew before the words even finished leaving their mouth that you did not want to do it. You felt it in your chest, that tight, sinking feeling that arrives the moment you realize what is being asked, and then you heard yourself say yes anyway, smoothly, quickly, almost automatically, like the real answer never had a chance. And now you are going to spend the next 3 days quietly resenting it. This is not a small habit. This is not just being polite or being a good person or being someone who likes to help. When saying no feels genuinely impossible, when the word sits in your throat and refuses to come out, no matter how clearly your body is telling you it needs to, something much deeper is running the show. And most people who live this way have no idea what that something actually is. They just know that every time the moment arrives, the yes comes out before they can stop it. And the cost of that yes, the time, the energy, the slow erosion of their own needs, gets paid quietly and alone, usually late at night when nobody is watching. So what is actually happening? Why do some people find it genuinely, physically, emotionally impossible to say no, even when everything in them wants to? It starts earlier than most people think. Much earlier. When children grow up in environments where their needs were treated as inconvenient, where expressing a preference created tension, where saying no to an adult meant disapproval or withdrawal or conflict that felt dangerous, they learn something very specific. They learn that keeping other people comfortable is the safest way to exist, that making themselves smaller, more agreeable, more accommodating, reduces the threat in the room. That yes is protection and no is risk. This is not a conscious decision. A child does not sit down and reason their way to this conclusion. It happens at the level of the nervous system. The body learns. And what the body learns early, it carries forward automatically. Long after the original environment is gone, long after the people who created that environment are no longer in the room. Psychologist Susan Newman, who has written extensively on the psychology of people-pleasing and the specific difficulty of saying no, describes this pattern as one rooted not in generosity, but in fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of conflict, the fear of being seen as difficult, selfish, or unkind, and critically, the fear that if you say no, something important will be lost, the relationship, the approval, the version of yourself that other people find acceptable. The yes is not about the request. It is about managing that fear in real time as quickly and as smoothly as possible. And here is what makes it so hard to see from the inside, because it does not feel like fear. It feels like kindness. It feels like being a good person. It feels like not wanting to make things difficult. The story you tell yourself is that you are just considerate, just accommodating, just someone who likes to help. And that story is very convincing because the kindness is genuinely real. The care is genuinely real. But underneath it, quietly running the whole operation is something that has nothing to do with generosity at all. Think about the last time someone asked you for something you genuinely did not have the capacity to give. Not just slightly inconvenient, something that you knew would cost you real time, real energy, real peace. What happened in your body in that moment before you answered? That moment is where the truth lives. Most people who cannot say no describe a very specific internal experience in that gap between the request and the response. A sudden rush of anxiety. A rapid mental calculation of what the other person will think, how they will react, whether they will be upset, whether this will change how they see you. And then, before any of that calculation is even finished, the yes arrives. Because the yes stops the anxiety faster than anything else. It is immediate relief. The threat goes away. The discomfort dissolves. And that relief is genuinely powerful, powerful enough to override what your own needs were trying to tell you. Researcher Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA has studied the neuroscience of social rejection and found that the brain processes social exclusion through many of the same neural pathways it uses to process physical pain. Being rejected, disappointing someone, being seen as difficult, these are not just emotionally uncomfortable experiences. They register in the brain similarly to being physically hurt. which means for someone whose nervous system learned early that disapproval is dangerous, the act of saying no is not just awkward, it is genuinely threatening at a neurological level. The yes is not weakness. It is the brain trying to avoid what it has learned to experience as pain. Understanding this changes everything about how you see yourself if you are someone who lives this way. You are not spineless. You are not a pushover in some simple dismissive sense of that word. You are someone whose nervous system built a very effective protection strategy around a very real threat, and that strategy has been running on autopilot ever since. The problem is not that the strategy was wrong when it was built. The problem is that it is still running in environments where the original threat no longer exists, costing you things it was never designed to cost you, because the cost is real, and it accumulates. Every yes that should have been a no is a small withdrawal from something, from your energy, from your time, from your sense of your own life as something that belongs to you. People who cannot say no often describe a creeping feeling, hard to pinpoint but impossible to ignore, that their life is somehow being lived for everyone else, that they are perpetually available to the needs of others, while their own needs sit in a waiting room that never seems to get any shorter. And over time, that feeling does not stay quiet. It comes out sideways, as resentment toward the people they keep saying yes to, even though those people never forced the yes, as exhaustion that does not seem proportional to what they actually did, as a vague, persistent sadness about a life that looks fine from the outside but feels somehow hollow from within. This is the dark part that the word people-pleasing does not quite capture. It sounds almost harmless, even charming. But the reality of living without the ability to say no is a slow, steady loss of yourself, of your preferences, of your time, of your voice in your own story. So what actually helps? Not in a simple three-step way, but in the real way. The first thing is recognizing that no is not an act of rejection. It is an act of honesty. When you say yes to something you cannot genuinely give, you are not being kind. You are delaying a cost and making it larger. The resentment that builds, the exhaustion that follows, the eventual withdrawal that happens when you have given too much for too long, these things damage relationships far more than an honest no ever would. The second thing is practicing the pause. The yes comes fast because it is automatic. The only way to interrupt an automatic response is to create space before it arrives. When someone asks you for something, you are allowed to say, "Let me think about that and get back to you." That small sentence is not stalling. It is giving the real answer time to surface before the automatic one takes over. And the third thing, the hardest one, is sitting with the discomfort of the no without immediately trying to fix it. Because the first time you say no to someone who is used to you saying yes, it will feel terrible. The anxiety will come, the guilt will follow. And that feeling is not evidence that you did something wrong. It is just the old protection strategy doing what it was built to do. It gets quieter with practice, not gone, quieter. You said yes again. You felt the no in your chest and you said yes anyway. And now, at least, you understand exactly what that yes was made of. Not just kindness. Something older. Something that was trying to keep you safe, and something you are now finally allowed to put down.